Good evening and welcome to Satsang with John David, live from the Open Sky House near Cologne. You can join this meeting tonight by Skype. The Skype address is Meeting John David. And you're very much invited to ask a question or share a topic or just say hello and connect. Thank you.
Welcome to Satsang. So some jokes. A man tells his friend he'd been on holiday to Italy for the 3rd year in a row. Each time his wife got pregnant at that time. His friend answers, maybe it is time to visit another country. That would not matter, the man replies, but I'm thinking of taking her along in the future. Annie, 6 years old, gets home from school. She had her first family planning lesson. Her mother asks, interested, how did it go? I died of shame, she answers. Lucy, from over the road, says that the stork brings babies. Sally next door said you can buy them at the orphanage. Peter in my class says you can buy babies at the hospital. Her mother answers laughingly, but that's no reason to be ashamed. No, but I can't tell them that we were so poor that you and Daddy had to make me yourself. A husband brings the child home from kindergarten and asks his wife, he's been crying the whole way home. Is he sick or something? No, replies the wife. He was just trying to tell you he is not our Frankie. So we've had an interesting week. As you remember, last Friday, we were a little bit in a kind of shock about our whole businesses, all our income had been closed down by the government, and that nobody was allowed to move, everybody should stay at home. It all felt a bit like, how are we going to survive this? Something like that. And so at this meeting, if you remember last week, I had asked whether people would give some donation to help us over this next period. And we confirmed this with an email a few days later. And the target for those donations was 12,000 euros, which we needed to get us through this next month. And I'd like to thank the people that have sent us a donation, because during this week we've received about 9,500 from about 20 people. So this is very touching. Some people we don't even know, or I don't know who they are. It seems people who somehow connected to what we're doing here have sent money. And in particular, I'd like to say hi to Lotus Dakini. Brought back strong memories of about 20 years ago when I first arrived in Germany. In those days, I was very vulnerable, I would say, because in those days I had just come to Europe again after 18 years, not knowing anybody. And of course, I didn't speak German, and I didn't know anybody in Germany. And at that time, there was a lot of interest in the spiritual things. And so anyway, I was passed from one person to the other all around Germany, and so I was quite busy. And in Karlsruhe, I was introduced to this woman, Lotus Dakini. Actually, I think I gave her this name. And she was a sort of dishy blonde, rather attractive dishy blonde, married to rather a nice estate developer. And when I met her, she was very unhappy in her marriage. And so she started to come to my meetings, and we started to get friends. not in any kind of intimate way, but just sort of satsang friends, you could say. I supported her with separating and divorcing from her husband. And her husband had about 4 Mercedes in his garage. He had a little sporty one, and then he had a sort of family one, and he had a sort of antique one, and then he had like the biggest possible one. And he liked to drive the little sporty one, so she got to drive the really big one. So basically it ended up that she drove me all around Europe in this bloody great Mercedes. And so this was, of course, for somebody who'd been living in India for years, this was really cute because, Mercedes was like the sort of god of motor cars. And I would show up, in this huge kind of thing with this beautiful, I had a beautiful chauffeur, blonde chauffeur. So anyway, Lotus Dakini, if you're hearing this broadcast, send us some info about you. I haven't thought about her for probably 10 years now. Anyway, she sent a donation. And it's very interesting because, of course, we need this money to get through this next 2 weeks, beginning of April. But also it's a lovely moment to connect with people because, of course, the people who are sending money are feeling some heart connection to the Open Sky House and to John David. So actually it's a very nice kind of moment, I would say. Very nice moment. And actually, we're still looking for about another 3,000. So I think some people have promised to give us some, but we don't know what they're going to give us yet. And if somebody new is watching, we need this money because although this week everybody's been applying for jobs, we've started to guard supermarkets so that we're now the people that say how many can go in and how many, you have to count like the car parking, 3 come out and 3 can go in. So this is a very tough job, of course. So 2 people are doing this job. And somebody's working in a bakery, somebody may be going to help with old people. Ram has expanded his job, so he's now working for a company that moves people from one house to the other. So he spends his day carrying furniture. So we've started to get jobs, and I'm sure by another week or 2 we'll all have jobs. But of course the money takes time to come in. So that's why right now we need this sort of bridging 12,000. And then after that, we hope we have time, we'll be able to make our own money again. Another thing I would like to say is that, when you're in some kind of communion with existence, when you really trust existence, where you kind of listen to existence, then I've noticed in my own life, because I would say I've been living that way for about 20 odd years, I see many, many times how things happen, like coincidences happen. So now we've got this situation where people need to stay at home. And so idly looking through the newspaper, I found an article, a techie article, talking about something called Zoom. And this is something a bit like Skype, except that you can link up a whole bunch of people, and you can see this whole bunch of people. So I was reading about it in the context that since they closed all the schools and universities, many teachers are continuing their classes using this Zoom. And I immediately thought, aha. So now I'm planning to organize in the next time, during the day, I'm going to offer various satsang meetings. So if you're interested in this, you can send us an email. And so this is something where you open up your own computer. You can even do it on your smartphone. But it would be more interesting on a computer because then you can see a little video of all the other people who are in the circle. And I can then also see you. And you can come through and ask me a question. I can answer you. And I'll probably be doing this in Russian and German and Spanish. So when I do those, we'll have a translator. So there'll be a translator available in your own language. We'll have a chance for an intimate kind of talk together about whatever you want. And as I suddenly have a lot of spare time, I'm planning to do this during the week in the daytime. So when you're not working, you're at home, or maybe you're supposed to be working at home, but you can break off for an hour. So this is a new project which somehow has come out of this difficult situation we suddenly find ourselves in. So I'm going to be like the home entertainment. I'm going to have a special hat and a red nose. Yeah, okay. And I'm very pleased to see that here in our community, everybody was a little bit surprised last week, I would say. There was you might call it shock. But now we've had meetings to figure out how we can pay our bills. People have applied for jobs, and some of them have started the jobs. And now I can see tonight that everybody is actually quite relaxed. And that's, of course, a very nice feeling, because one of the worst things from this kind of situation is that we come into some kind of fear. You know, I'm not going to survive. I'm not going to survive. You see? And of course, the mind creates that kind of movie inside. Yeah, that we're not going to survive. It's all very terrible. I'm not going to survive. But actually, you almost certainly are going to survive. So it's pretty clear now that out of all the many people who are getting this infection, only about less than 1% are dying from it. And this generally is either people who are over 75, 80, older people, whose bodies basically are preparing themselves for going anyway, or they're people who are maybe younger but have got some underlying health problem, mostly to do with their breathing, with their lungs. So for anybody who's basically healthy, there's very little risk that you're going to actually die from this. And many people are getting this in a very mild form. Tonight there was the news that the English Prime Minister, who was quite happily going around hospitals shaking everybody by the hand this week, he's now got it. And Bonnie Prince Charles, who's also probably been going around shaking people's hands, he's also got it. So everybody can get it, but for most people it's fairly mild. You get a fever, you get a cough, and after a few days it gets better again. That may not be exactly the medical, kosher medical opinion, but anyway, that's what I gather from reading things in the internet. So if you remember last week, we had a very dynamic guy called Bo, who turned out to be a man. I wasn't quite sure, but he was a man. And this week he sent me a very interesting book that he's written about enlightenment. And I've invited him to come sometime and talk to us, because he's clearly a very experienced guy. And we had some email exchange this week, and I thought I would just read a few of his comments. I suggest real spirituality has nothing to do with fulfilling the expectations of the ego. Real spirituality is one energy, the whole, or you could say the Tao. So this is, basically what I'm calling our essential nature. And I've suggested that everybody has an essential nature, and this is somehow, we could say, metaphorically deeper than our mind. So inside every organism, every energy manifestation, there is actually something more than just the mind. which we can call our essential nature, and he's calling this the Tao. And this Tao, he's suggesting, is a certain energy. And this is available to everybody. We all have the possibility of living in harmony with the Tao, with this life force, or our essential nature. Because everybody's essential nature is actually the same essential nature. So this is not something you get. In fact, it's something that you got already when you arrived, and you may not be in contact with it. And you're not in contact with it probably because you've got a very busy box of tricks. And then he goes on to talk about various teachers who he thinks are living in this Tao. And he kind of includes me in that. These are all human beings without ego or their own motivation. Even if they seem to have an own motivation, this is only our projection. These people are just bodies connected through a higher intelligence, which is beyond the mind. Of course, if we come near to a person like that, and we are open, we can feel that energy, because that energy is vibrating all the time. Something deep within us wants to bow down. And again, I find this absolutely right. I remember when I was much, much younger, about 30, I was taken by existence actually to India, to an ashram in India. And in this ashram there was a master, Osho, who gave morning talks and smaller meetings in the evenings. And I remember after some days feeling the enormous presence of this man. He was just like somebody I'd never met in my life before. He had some kind of quality about him which deeply touched me. I was sitting there on the floor in front of him along with a few hundred. They said 2,000. I don't know if it was really 2,000, but it was a lot of people, maybe more than 1,000, let's say, sitting on the floor in front of him. And he used to come in wearing a simple white gown, sit in a chair and talk about some particular topic. He would always tell a few jokes. And by the end of his talk, an hour and a half, 2 hours, sometimes 2.5 hours, I would feel completely different than I did when I first came in the morning. So his energy had the ability to go out and touch inside me this essential nature. So this is actually what happens when you're in the presence of somebody who is living without ego, that they have this huge energy, and as soon as you connect to it, you yourself get touched there. And that's what happens in these kind of evenings together now. But by the end of the evening, our own essential energy has been activated. It's activated. So you're in contact with your own energy. And of course, this energy is so touching. We feel inside so much touched that then there is the feeling of bowing down. So, when I've met various masters in India, mainly in India, but also in the West. I've met quite a lot of these people because I've done some books where I interviewed them. And I can remember in every one of those meetings, I had this experience where, by the end of 2 hours sitting together, there was just this enormous feeling of oneness, enormous feeling of gratitude, and a kind of feeling of bowing down, because this is so beautiful. You feel to, if you like, bow down. Doesn't mean you actually physically bow down, but and then he goes on, I'm talking about the hidden spirit within us that wants to bow down. Tears start to come, and for the first time we can feel real love. This is also very interesting, because essentially this this energy of our essential nature, this is real love. I mean, what is the definition of love? You know, we all have our own idea about what love is, and usually love is talked about in the connection of some other person, that somebody comes and loves me. So usually it's a kind of relationship situation when we feel love. But this is probably not really true. That a much better definition of love is that, in fact, love is our essential nature. Our essential nature is love. And so all this rushing backwards and forwards on the motorway looking for love is all a waste of time, basically. The love is inside us. And when we stop, we go inside, we look inside, we connect inside, we connect deeply inside, we can discover this love. So this is the most authentic way to connect to love. And of course, we all know the problems that we have when we try to get love from some other person. So we've all had experiences of relationship. We meet somebody and it seems like that they are loving us. It feels like, oh, she loves me or he loves me. And then for some time there's a kind of honeymoon period where somehow the ego is not very active. The woman goes to football and the man goes to the knitting classes, and everybody is, you know, not really in their own ego very much, because you give up what you want because of this nice feeling that the other person loves you. She loves me so much, I won't go to football this week, I'll go and walk in the park with her. So this is very, very easy for some time, and so the honeymoon works for some time. And then, of course, gradually the ego comes back, and now suddenly it's not just your ego, you have to deal also with your partner's ego, so it's two egos. And if it takes some longer time, you have three egos, because you have my ego, her or his ego, and our ego. So it's like three egos to deal with, or three stories to deal with. So that gets very, very complicated. I think coffee shops were probably invented so people could sit and work out their relationships. Again, this bow down has nothing to do with a person. We are bowing to the life energy itself, which is within all of us. Of course, how can we do that with our will? On the contrary, the will is in the way. The will is in the way. I really love reading other people's ways of explaining the same thing, because it always comes out a bit different. I would never describe it like that, but it's perfectly correct. So basically, in order to experience this life force, our essential nature, we have to get out of our way. We have to move out of our own way. And that means dealing with the box of tricks, dealing with the old mind structures that maybe happened when we were much younger, things that have often been there when we were very, very small, even before we could talk. These are more like traumatic ones. And then other things happen in our life, and we learn from our love relationships, for example. We get abandoned a few times, and then we're very nervous to try again, and so on and so on and so on. So all this is there inside us, in our memory, and we keep it in our box of tricks. And of course, all of that is acting like a barrier to our true nature. And one of the beautiful things about being with little children, they don't have any of that, or they have very little of that. Probably they have something, because it seems as if little children bring something with them. And so they have something, but it's very little compared to what adults have. And as you get older, you have more and more of it. So actually, for young people, you have a much better chance of experiencing your life force, your essential nature, than you do when you're older. Because when you're older, you've collected much more baggage, and probably you're much less ready to get rid of this baggage. And so at a certain age, maybe nothing much can happen. Just too difficult. And then later on in his letter, he wrote something a bit different, because he'd been running an Osho center in Stuttgart. And so he's very familiar with the Osho sannyasins. In my eyes, most sannyasins or seekers, spiritual seekers, followed their own ego and have built up a strong spiritual ego in the name of spirituality. Most of them are now unavailable. There's a kind of spiritual slavery, pretending to have no ego or to be enlightened, seeking and searching over decades for nothingness. Who is seeking and searching? This is also something that I can absolutely agree with. The most difficult people for me to work with are people who've been 25 years on a kind of spiritual journey, who have collected their own ideas about everything, which they completely usually believe in, their ideas, and they're not really ready to have those ideas challenged, and that makes them very, very difficult. I remember once a French couple arrived at Papaji's Satsangs in Lucknow, and they were explaining to him on the first day how they both did Vipassana every morning. I think it was for 2 hours every morning. And they looked like kind of dried wood, those kind of over-meditated people, who end up very dry, no juice. All the juice had somehow gone out. And Papaji completely shocked them, because he said to them pretty quickly, you should stop to meditate. And they were so angry and pissed off with him, and they immediately judged that he can't be a real spiritual master if he told them to stop meditating, that they rushed off to the station and bought tickets to leave. And then I don't quite remember what happened to them after that, but in fact they didn't leave. And I think the woman actually had a strong awakening experience. I've tried that myself a few times with people who meditate a lot. I've also tried to point out to them that it's, of course, great to meditate. I also tell many people to meditate, of course. So meditation is a wonderful way to calm the mind and to allow the mind to calm down, to become a quiet, silent mind. So in that way, meditation is very good. But meditation can also become a kind of place to hide. You can hide in your meditation and never really look at the things you really need to look at, which are actually preventing you from being who you are. And sometimes people think that I'm meditating to become free, or I'm meditating to become peaceful. You see, as if this technique is going to give them peace. It doesn't work like that. So meditation is great in the beginning, when you don't know anything, when you've got a very busy mind. Then something like meditation has to happen in order to bring yourself into a silence, the ability to be silent. But there's more to that, more to understanding than meditation. I remember Osho producing a beautiful, well, he didn't produce the book, of course, but they're using his talks on meditation. They produced a beautiful book called Meditation. It's about that thick. And on the last page or two, he was writing, all the things in this book are not really meditation. You see. So true meditation happens when you're living in the present moment, when you're living now. That's meditation. And all the techniques of meditation, we can call them meditation, but they're not really meditation. I was experiencing it the other afternoon with my 2 girls. We went for a walk in the forest, and unbelievable, really. every moment, every moment they find a stick, or this happens, or that happens, or they need to pee, or they want to sit on a log, or they want to walk along a log, or never stops. It's like walking with two volcanoes. And very present. They're just responding to, then suddenly a dog maybe comes nearby, and then they get scary of the dog. All kind of stuff happens. But you feel every moment they're just there. And it's almost tiring because there's two of them, so they're both so present and so kind of, how can I say, like an honest spontaneity. Okay. Somebody like to come? If you speak German, you can also come. We have many translators here. Come. Hello. You're Victoria.
Ja.
So I was rather pleased to hear that you were coming again tonight.
Ich habe mich sehr gefreut zu hören, dass du kommst.
This morning I was watching, listening to last week's meeting, and then you showed up at the end of the meeting, and then I was thinking, I wonder what happens to her, and then I was told that you were coming tonight.
Ich habe mir heute Morgen die Aufzeichnung von dem letzten Satsang angeguckt und am Ende tauchtest du auf. Dann habe ich mich gefragt, was ist denn mit ihr? Und dann wurde mir gesagt, dass du heute wiederkommst.
So, do you know why you came back?
Weißt du, warum du wieder da bist?
Etwas hat mich hierher gezogen.
Something pulled me here.
Right. It was like this man. You were here last week when this man was talking Bo, the very passionate man on the Skype, As he's saying, when you say pulled you here, it's like bowing down, yeah? It's like something was touched inside, and you feel that you have to come, And that's the best possible way to come here.
Ja, das ist so wie Bo sagt, das, was dich hierher zieht, das ist das Gleiche wie sich verneigen wollen. Und das ist die schönste Art und Weise, auf die man hierher kommen kann.
Yes. Ich weiß gar nicht, was ich sagen möchte eigentlich. Ist es ein Zustand? Du hast mir letzte Woche was gesagt. Weiß nicht, möchtest du?
I don't know really how
Maybe you
to
come
say.
here because I can't really. There's a cushion there. Maybe you can.
Last week you said something to me.
Das hat mich schon sehr berührt.
What really touched me?
Well, one thing I told you is that you're very sincere.
Eine Sache, die ich dir gesagt habe, ist, dass du sehr ernsthaft bist.
Das hat mich nicht so berührt.
This didn't touch me much.
Okay.
Der Satz, was du gesagt hast, dass ich in mir tief hineinfallen soll, das beschäftigt mich seitdem sehr.
But you told me I should fall deep inside, and this is working in me now.
Right.
Ich ertappe mich dabei, dass ich immer noch nach der Liebe außen suche. Alles, was ich nicht bekommen habe, suche ich außen und dann dann kehre ich wieder zurück zu Gott, aber ich finde mich nicht dabei.
And then I catch myself how I still try to get the love from outside, everything that I didn't get. And then I try to connect to God and I come back, but I don't find myself in there.
Yeah, right. Well, almost everybody is somehow conditioned to have this idea that we can get love from the other person.
Ja, wir alle haben diese Idee, dass wir die Liebe von wem anders bekommen können.
And, of course, it appears to be like that when you meet somebody special.
Und wenn du jemandem Besonderen begegnest, dann scheint es so zu sein.
And, of course, it's possible to share love.
Und Liebe kann man teilen.
But essentially, the love that we feel inside is our own love.
Aber die Liebe, die wir spüren, ist unsere eigene Liebe.
And we feel this as soon as we go deep enough.
Und sobald wir tief genug kommen, spüren wir das.
And what stops us going deep enough?
Und was uns davon abhält, tiefer zu gehen,
It's all kind of layers of mindy stuff, basically.
sind Schichten von Verstandesdingen.
I mean, one of the things is that in the society we're so conditioned with this idea that the other person gives us love.
Zum Beispiel sind wir in der Gesellschaft so stark konditioniert mit dieser Vorstellung, dass der andere uns Liebe geben würde.
Once we become a teenager, I mean, life becomes focused on trying to find somebody to love us.
Ab dem Moment, wo wir Teenager sind, dreht sich unser Leben darum, jemanden zu finden, der uns lieben wird.
Yeah. And this goes on for our whole life, basically.
Und das geht unser ganzes Leben so weiter.
And all our friends are doing it, everybody's doing it. You open up a magazine and some famous people from Hollywood are doing it. Everybody's doing it.
Und alle machen das. Unsere Freunde, in allen Magazinen liest man davon.
And you don't open up many magazines. There's very few when you open them up. They say, oh, this week Mr. Blah, blah, he was sitting silently the whole week and met his own love. You never read those kind of stories.
Und man liest sehr selten, dass diese Woche Herr so und so stillgesessen hat und seine eigene Liebe gefunden hat.
I think I've never read this kind of story.
Ich glaube, ich habe das noch nie gelesen.
And, we read many of the other kinds of stories.
Und wir lesen viel von diesen anderen Geschichten.
In fact, they have a lot of gossip magazines which are just existing on these kind of stories. Will he leave her? Will she leave him? Is it working? Is it not working? Maybe it's going to work, maybe it's not going to work. I mean, they fill up whole magazines with all that stuff.
Und es gibt eine ganze Reihe Magazine, die sich nur mit diesem Thema beschäftigen.
As if this is the only thing that's really important in life, is to deal with all that.
Als wäre das Einzige, was wirklich zählt, im Leben mit diesen Dingen umzugehen.
So it's very difficult to step out of that game.
Und es ist sehr schwer, aus diesem Spiel herauszukommen.
We have a young woman here who came to my retreat in India.
Wir haben hier eine junge Frau, die zu meinem Indien-Retreat gekommen ist.
And probably in the beginning of the retreat, I had suggested you get the most benefit from this retreat if you stay alone and you stay silent.
Und am Anfang habe ich ihr den Rat gegeben, du hast am meisten von diesem Retreat, wenn du alleine bleibst und still bleibst.
But, she's from Berlin.
Aber sie kommt aus Berlin.
And so what does she do? Within 5 minutes, she's found the most handsome young guy in the retreat.
Und deswegen hat sie in 5 Minuten den attraktivsten Mann im Retreat gefunden.
She got all her hooks sharpened up.
Hat all ihre Haken geschärft.
And then every day she got her hooks into this guy.
Und jeden Tag hat sie ihre Haken in diesen Typen hineingebracht.
I think he also had his own hooks.
Er hatte natürlich auch seine Haken.
So they were sitting together, with hooks in each other's hooks, well embedded.
Und so saßen sie zusammen und haben sich gegenseitig geangelt.
You see? So finally, after about a week, we had a meeting with them and said, it's okay, but maybe this isn't the best way to spend the retreat.
Und dann hatten wir nach wahrscheinlich einer Woche so ein Treffen, wo wir gesagt haben, das ist natürlich okay, aber es ist vielleicht nicht die beste Art und Weise, ein Retreat zu verbringen.
So then for 2 weeks they heard our advice.
Und so für 2 Wochen haben sie unseren Rat befolgt.
And 5 minutes after the retreat finished, they were both on a bus or taxi to the beach together.
Und 5 Minuten nachdem das Retreat vorbei war, waren sie beide im Bus zusammen auf dem Weg zum nächsten Strand.
And then, of course, they had already booked their air tickets back to Europe.
Dann hatten sie ihre Flüge nach Europa schon gebucht.
And as soon as she got back to Berlin, she bought a ticket to go and visit this guy.
Und sobald sie in Berlin war, kaufte sie ein Ticket, um den Typen bei ihm zu besuchen.
See, this is a typical life of a young woman.
Das ist das typische Leben einer jungen Frau.
And so there I am trying to talk about, going inside, go deeper, meet your own love. A complete waste of time.
Und da versuche ich, darüber zu reden, nach innen zu gehen, deine eigene Liebe zu finden. Komplette Zeitverschwendung.
She's leaving us on Sunday now. She's been here a few weeks and now she leaves on Sunday. And probably the first thing she'll do is buy a plane ticket and go and visit this guy.
Am Sonntag verlässt sie uns und wahrscheinlich ist das Erste, was sie tun wird, ist sich ein Ticket zu kaufen, um diesen Typen wieder zu besuchen.
Okay, well, you could do this. Okay. Well, maybe he's not available. Maybe you've got another one in Berlin. You'll soon find somebody anyway.
Finden, auch wenn es wer anders ist.
I'm just using you to have a go at her, actually. Because this is my last chance, you see, and she probably won't come and talk to me, so I'm using you to have a go at her.
Und weil sie nicht kommt, muss ich jetzt durch dich mit ihr sprechen.
Also das, was du sagst, das weiß ich. Ich kenne das durch meine Erlebnisse.
So what you are saying, I know, and I know this from my own experience.
Ich bin nicht mehr so jung.
I'm not that young anymore.
Ich habe auch einiges schon in meinem Leben durchgemacht. Aber ich ertappe mich dabei, dass ich immer noch nach der Liebe meiner Eltern suche, die ich nie bekommen habe.
But I still try to find the love from my parents, which I never got.
Right, right.
Und ich habe schon so viel gemacht und ich komme einfach nicht hin. Ich weiß nicht warum.
And I tried so much, but I can't get there, and I don't know why.
Well, this is another story which is not true.
Und das ist eine weitere Geschichte, die nicht wahr ist.
We all have this story that our parents should love us.
Wir alle haben diese Geschichte, dass unsere Eltern uns lieben sollten.
But the reality is that many parents can't love their children.
Aber die Realität ist, dass viele Eltern ihre Kinder nicht lieben können.
It's not completely their own fault. You can't necessarily blame the parent.
Du kannst ihnen dafür nicht die Schuld geben.
But as you know, in Germany there was some big trouble. There was the wartime.
Aber in Deutschland zum Beispiel gab es diese Kriegszeit.
And I mean, probably not exactly your parents, but your parents' parents, your grandparents were involved in all that. They had probably many traumas from that. Maybe their whole material life was destroyed and so on. So, there is lots of trauma in society in every country.
Und in allen Ländern gibt es ab da große Traumata in der Gesellschaft.
Sometimes in our community we have refugees who've come from some other country.
Manchmal haben wir Flüchtlinge bei uns in der Gemeinschaft.
And, they had to leave their own country because of some reason.
Aus irgendeinem Grund mussten die ihr Land verlassen.
And then they come to, for example, they come here to Germany out of being, maybe in Syria or maybe in some other country.
Vielleicht waren sie in Syrien oder woanders und dann kommen sie hierher.
And something like that is an enormous trauma.
Und so etwas ist ein unglaubliches Trauma.
You arrive in a country where you don't speak the language, where you don't know anybody, you have no job, you have nothing.
Du kommst in ein Land, wo du die Sprache nicht sprichst, du kennst niemanden, du hast keinen Job, du hast gar nichts.
So then in that situation, how can the parents love their children really?
Und in so einer Situation, wie können die Eltern ihre Kinder wirklich lieben?
I mean, yes, they probably love their children because every parent somehow loves their children.
Natürlich liebt jedes Elternteil die Kinder.
But when the parents are traumatized from moving from one country to another, they haven't got a job, the father's got to find a job and blah, blah, and blah, blah, and blah, blah. You can imagine there's not much time for loving children.
Aber wenn die Eltern traumatisiert sind davon, in ein anderes Land zu kommen, ist nicht viel Zeit dafür, die Kinder zu lieben.
And, you know, if you consider your parents' situation when you were a little girl,
Und wenn du dir die Situation deiner Eltern, als du klein warst, hervorrufst,
it would have been shortly after they'd been through this difficult wartime.
ist das wahrscheinlich kurz nach dieser schwierigen Kriegszeit.
And so like many, many other people, they weren't in a position where they can really love you in the way that you could love your own children now.
Und so wie bei vielen anderen Leuten auch, waren sie wahrscheinlich nicht in der Lage, ihre Kinder so zu lieben, wie du jetzt deine Kinder lieben kannst.
So of course it's a very nice story about how parents always love their children. Yeah?
Und die Geschichte ist natürlich sehr schön, wie Eltern ihre Kinder lieben sollten.
But the reality of it is that, you know, maybe through no fault of the parents, it just doesn't really work.
Aber die Realität ist, dass es einfach nicht so funktioniert.
You know?
Ja, zu diesem Thema habe ich schon einiges angeschaut. Und meine Frage ist, wie kann ich wirklich wahrhaftig meine eigene Liebe zu mir selbst finden?
Yeah, I looked a lot into this issue, and my question is, how can I truly find my own love?
That's the best question, yeah?
Ja, das ist die beste Frage
Don't
natürlich.
try to find the love from a boyfriend. Don't try to find the love from your parents. Find the love from inside of you.
Versuche nicht die Liebe von einem Freund zu finden oder
Because
von deinen Eltern, sondern von dir.
that's completely in your own possibility, in your own hands.
Denn das hast du selbst in der Hand.
I remember recently there was a woman who was telling us how her sister hadn't talked to her for 40 years, I think it was that 40? Her daughter hadn't spoken to her for 40 years.
Da war eine Frau, die uns erzählte, dass ihre Tochter seit 40 Jahren nicht mit ihr gesprochen hat.
And so the mother, of course, was feeling a great deal of unhappiness because of that.
Und natürlich war die Mutter sehr unglücklich darüber.
And she was desperately trying to find a way she could talk to her daughter, find out what was wrong, and, you know, to make contact again.
Und sie suchte verzweifelt nach einem Weg, um wieder in Kontakt zu kommen.
And I don't know what the story was. There must have been some reason.
Ich weiß nicht genau, was der Grund dafür war.
You see, but this again depends on the daughter. Maybe she's ready to compromise. The mother maybe was ready to compromise with the daughter. But if the daughter's not ready to compromise with the mother, then nothing can happen. You know, it's there's no way to deal with that actually.
Aber da hängt es von der Tochter ab, ob sie bereit ist, sich auf die Mutter einzulassen.
And probably we talked about this in my retreat in India.
Wahrscheinlich haben wir in Indien auch darüber gesprochen.
And then during the retreat, she came in contact with her own love.
Und in dem Retreat ist sie in Kontakt gekommen mit ihrer eigenen Liebe.
And so out of that, I think that is no longer such a big issue for her.
Und seitdem ist es nicht mehr so ein großes Thema für sie.
So my suggestion to people is, you know, focus where you can be in charge of your own destiny.
Und deswegen ist mein Rat, konzentriere dich darauf, wo du dein Schicksal selbst in der Hand hast.
And when you don't feel very good, then maybe it doesn't help to be told, you know, access your own love.
Und wenn du dich nicht so gut fühlst, dann hilft es vielleicht nicht, wenn man dir sagt, dass du dich auf deine eigene Liebe konzentrieren sollst.
Because you feel like shit, you don't feel like you have any love.
Weil du fühlst dich so beschissen, du glaubst, du hast gar keine Liebe.
You see? But actually, everybody has the same potential.
Aber wir alle haben das gleiche Potenzial.
Whether you're a murderer, a rapist, I don't know, whatever, you know, any kind of horrible thing you can think about, the reality is that inside that person, they have the same capacity to come to love.
Egal wie schrecklich du bist, in jedem Menschen ist das gleiche Potenzial, zur Liebe zu kommen.
It doesn't depend on anything.
Es hängt von nichts ab.
It's nature, it's a given.
Es ist dir gegeben.
We have 2 eyes, we have 1 nose, and we have love.
Wir haben 2 Augen, eine Nase und Liebe.
It's a kind of complete package.
Das ist ein vollständiges Paket.
So however many judgments you might have about yourself,
Und egal, was für Urteile du über dich selbst hast,
they don't stop you having the love inside.
sie halten dich nicht davon ab, diese Liebe in dir zu haben.
Yeah. So it's the
Ich weiß
judgment.
nicht, ob das so stimmt, weil ich glaube oft die Urteile von anderen über mich und das verunsichert mich.
I don't know if that's true. I often believe the judgments of others, and that makes me insecure.
Of other people about you, don't listen to them. And maybe they're true, you know. From their point of view, you may be a very ugly young woman who doesn't deserve any love.
Hör ihnen nicht zu. Vielleicht haben sie recht. Aus ihrer Perspektive bist du vielleicht eine sehr unansehnliche junge Frau, die keine Liebe verdient.
But you don't know why they think that, you know.
Aber du weißt nicht, warum sie das denken.
Maybe you remind them of their mother and their mother used to beat them every night or something. You don't know the reason they have this judgment.
Vielleicht siehst du aus wie ihre Mutter, die sie jede Nacht geschlagen hat. Du weißt nicht, warum sie das denken.
So it's not a good strategy to listen to people's judgments.
Es ist keine gute Strategie, auf die Urteile anderer zu hören.
Yeah. Because people don't know.
Weil die Leute haben keine Ahnung.
I had an interesting experience because when I was living in India with my spiritual master for nearly 5 years,
Als ich bei meinem spirituellen Meister in Indien lebte,
for nearly 2 years I was completely celibate. I had no sex at all.
war ich für 2 Jahre komplett zölibatär. Ich hatte gar keinen Sex.
But I had a scooter
Aber ich hatte einen Roller
and had extra seat on the back.
und hatte ein bisschen Platz hinten drauf.
So for some reason, I was maybe a bit funny guy or something, but I had many nice girls sitting on the back.
Und vielleicht, weil ich ein bisschen schräger Typ war, hatte ich immer viele nette Mädels auf meinem Roller.
I even discovered gradually that a lot of girls like men who are not into sex. You know, I discovered another attraction to sit on the back of my scooter.
Ich habe sogar festgestellt, dass viele Frauen sich hingezogen fühlen zu Männern, die kein Interesse an Sex haben.
You know, sometimes I even had 2 girls on the back.
Manchmal hatte ich sogar 2 Mädchen auf meinem Scooter.
But you know, we weren't in some kind of hot sexual relationship. We were just having fun together.
Aber wir hatten keine heiße, sexy Beziehung. Wir hatten einfach Spaß zusammen.
But you can imagine the reputation I had in the community there.
Aber du kannst dir meinen Ruf vorstellen, den ich in dieser Gemeinschaft hatte.
Not only 1 girl, but sometimes 2 girls on your scooter.
Nicht nur eine, sondern gleich 2 Mädels auf meinem Roller.
And different girls.
Und dann auch noch wechselnde.
You see, so that didn't make a very good reputation.
Ich habe keinen guten Ruf bekommen.
And some people, they've got that reputation about me, you know, 50 years later. Well, not 50 years later, 25 years later.
Und manche Leute, die haben 25 Jahre später immer noch diese Meinung von mir.
And now I can't even ride a scooter.
Jetzt kann ich noch nicht mal mehr Roller fahren.
So this is, you know, so if you worry about people's opinions or judgments,
Also wenn du dich kümmerst um die Meinungen anderer Leute,
then it kind of makes you small, you know?
macht dich das klein.
Ja, und ich hinterfrage mich zu viel. Ich glaube, es geht wirklich im Selbstliebe darum, dass man sich so annimmt, wie man ist. Und wenn man einem nicht gefällt, dann kann man reflektieren, aber dann auch stehen lassen.
Yeah, I think I question myself too much.
Yeah, of course. God made you very beautiful, beautiful young woman, and then you say it's not good enough, God.
Ja, Gott hat dich zu einer sehr schönen jungen Frau gemacht und dann sagst du zu ihm, das ist nicht gut genug.
So this is kind of arrogant, isn't it?
Das ist so ein bisschen arrogant, oder?
You know? So, I mean, God is, you know, he works a lot up there, producing all these different kinds of human beings.
Also Gott, der arbeitet echt hart, all diese Menschen herzustellen.
And then we come along and say, oh, it's not good enough, you know, I don't like this, I don't like that. You know, we have all kind of judgments.
Und dann kommen wir daher und sagen, das ist nicht gut genug und das nicht. Und wir haben alle möglichen Urteile.
And you don't have to make the other kind of judgment. You don't have to go around saying, I'm the greatest, I'm the most beautiful woman in the world. You don't have to make this kind of judgment. You can just accept yourself as you are.
Du musst auch nicht hergehen und sagen, hey, ich bin die größte und schönste aller Frauen. Du kannst dich einfach akzeptieren, wie du bist.
That's enough. It's
Das
enough.
reicht schon.
Just to be who you are.
Einfach so zu sein, wie du bist.
Yeah.
Jedes Mal, wenn ich dachte, dass ich meine Selbstliebe erreicht habe, dann ist etwas passiert, was mich wieder zurückgeworfen hat. Und ich würde es gerne finden, einfach, dass es immer da ist.
Every time when I thought I found my self-love, something happened that pulled me out. And I would like it to be there all the time.
Well, it is there all the time,
Na, es ist immer da.
but unfortunately it's covered by the kind of structures in your mind.
Aber es wird häufig von den Strukturen in deinem Verstand verdeckt.
And, you have to investigate what those are.
Und du musst herausfinden, welche das sind.
Because maybe in your life you can see there are certain patterns.
Denn in deinem Leben gibt es vielleicht gewisse Muster.
Like, I think last week you were saying, well, I always have issues about money.
Letzte Woche hast du zum Beispiel gesagt, dass du immer Probleme mit Geld hast.
Yeah? And for example, I don't have issues about money.
Ich habe keine Probleme mit Geld.
I discovered, for example, at some point in my life, the more I spend, the more I get.
Ich habe irgendwann mal festgestellt, je mehr ich ausgebe, desto mehr bekomme ich.
And so now I've got everything I could want in my life.
Jetzt habe ich alles, wovon ich immer träumen könnte.
So now I have to buy things for other people because otherwise that doesn't work anymore.
Jetzt muss ich für andere Leute kaufen, weil sonst funktioniert das nicht mehr.
So to keep this working, I have to buy stuff for other people so that,
Also
I
damit das
get more then.
funktioniert, dann muss ich für andere Leute Sachen kaufen.
So that was my discovery, that money works in that way. I mean, I didn't always know that. I discovered that when I was about 50, I think.
Das war so meine Entdeckung zu dem Thema Geld. Ich wusste das nicht immer. Ich habe das herausgefunden, als ich so circa 50 war.
But some people, they have a very amazingly open attitude about money and they become very, very rich very easily.
Aber manche Leute haben eine sehr offene Einstellung Geld gegenüber und die werden sehr leicht sehr reich.
Because they have some kind of inner confidence about how it all works,
Weil da so eine innere Selbstvertrauen ist bei dem Thema.
And maybe you don't have that, and maybe if you investigate, you'll find that there were certain conditionings that happened to you around the subject of money, for example.
Und vielleicht hast du das nicht und dann stellst du vielleicht fest, dass du bestimmte Konditionierungen bekommen hast zu dem Thema Geld.
For example, in my family, my father was a doctor,
Mein Vater war ein Doktor,
and my mother was a housewife.
meine Mutter eine Hausfrau.
Mummy and housewife, yeah. And so I remember there was a sort of energy as I grew up.
Und als ich auswuchs, gab es so eine Energie.
The business, making money wasn't quite respectable, something like not very respectable.
Dass Geschäfte oder Geld zu machen nicht wirklich respektabel sei.
In fact, across the street, I remember there was a family who had a business selling potatoes.
Auf der anderen Straßenseite gab es eine Familie, die Kartoffeln verkaufte.
And, they were selling a lot of potatoes.
Und die verkauften eine ganze Menge Kartoffeln.
And they had a big house and they had, extra cars and somehow they had lots of money.
Die hatten viel Geld, viele Autos, großes Haus.
And as a little kid, I got the impression that my father didn't have a very high opinion of those guys selling potatoes.
Und als Kind bekam ich den Eindruck, dass mein Vater diese Familie nicht besonders mochte.
You see. So those things have some kind of inner effect, I think.
Und diese Dinge haben eine Auswirkung.
So that's one kind of example of how maybe some kind of structures inside you are sabotaging your life.
Und das ist ein Beispiel davon, wie so Strukturen in dir dein Leben sabotieren.
Ja, ich habe auch versucht, ich liebe meine Mutter, sie ist schon lange tot, aber ich liebe sie und ich habe gesehen, wie hart sie für ihr Geld als Krankenschwester gearbeitet hat. Und das ist irgendwie in mir, dass ich auch hart arbeiten muss, um Geld zu verdienen.
So my mother is dead since some time, and I really love her dearly. And I saw how hard she worked as a nurse to earn her money. So inside me, I think I also have to work hard to earn money.
Yeah.
Und sie hat mich allein großgezogen und vielleicht habe ich mich als Kind schon schuldig gefühlt, weil sie so hart arbeiten musste.
And she raised me alone. And I think as a child already I felt guilty that she had to work so hard.
Right.
Und dieses Schuldgefühl ist immer noch da. Ich fühle mich für jeden und für allen immer schuldig.
And I still feel guilty for everybody and everything.
Right. But that doesn't help you, does
Dann
it?
kann ich mich nicht selber lieben.
Ja, aber das hilft dir nicht.
Huh? What?
I translated you.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't help you though, you know. So these kind of structures, you have to kind of become aware about them,
Und dieser Strukturen musst du dir bewusst werden.
you know, and you have to see that you're very identified with those things.
Du musst sehen, dass du dich sehr stark damit identifizierst.
They're like automatic.
Das geht schon automatisch.
And so then you have to consider the possibility of why are you so identified?
Und dann musst du dich fragen, warum du damit so identifiziert bist.
Ja, als würde ich mir nicht vergeben für etwas.
I don't forgive myself.
Yeah, but you're also identified because you're conditioned to be identified.
Ja, aber du bist auch identifiziert damit, weil dir das so beigebracht wurde.
It's a kind of habit. It's like a habit.
Es ist wie eine Angewohnheit.
Yeah. We have lots of habits.
Wir haben viele Angewohnheiten.
And these habits are another part of why we can't just live in our nature, why we can't be natural.
Und diese Angewohnheiten sind ein weiterer Teil davon, warum wir nicht in unserer wahren Natur leben können.
You know, because all this stuff is all on top, preventing us really accessing who we really are.
Denn all dieser Kram liegt immer oben drüber und hält uns davon ab, durchzudringen zu dem, was wir wirklich sind.
And probably you've had some moments in your life when everything kind of disappeared and you experienced your essential nature.
Und wahrscheinlich gab es Momente in deinem Leben, in dem alles so verschwand und du deine wahre Natur erlebtest.
Wenn ich Yoga mache oder wenn ich bete, dann ja, aber sonst nicht.
Yeah, it's when I pray or when I do yoga.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when you pray, you probably don't think so much.
Wahrscheinlich denkst du nicht, wenn du betest.
I mean, prayer is a kind of meditation, actually.
Ich denke dann an Gott.
Yeah, I think about God then.
Yeah, well, you have to be a bit careful about that, I would suggest.
Vielleicht musst du damit ein bisschen vorsichtig sein.
Because if you sit there praying and say, God, you know, everything is terrible, please help me,
Denn wenn du da sitzt und denkst, oh Gott, alles ist schrecklich, bitte hilf mir,
I would suggest that's also a kind of funny conditioning, which is disempowering you.
dann ist das auch so eine komische Vorstellung, die dir Kraft raubt.
And there's a wrong idea that God is up there and you're down here and, you know, he's greater than you. You're not separate from God.
Und da gibt es diese Vorstellung, dass Gott da oben ist und er ist irgendwie besser als du und du bist hier unten. Dabei bist du gar nicht getrennt
Everybody's
von
God,
Gott.
you know, everybody's God.
Wir alle sind Gott.
Wissen tue ich das. Nur ich
Intellectually I know
erlebe
this.
Gott als allmächtig.
What did you say?
Intellectually I know this, but I experience God as almighty.
No, if somebody told you that, you've got an idea, you know, it's a kind of habit.
Das ist eine Idee, die du hast, das hat dir jemand erzählt.
Vielleicht.
Maybe.
Yeah, well, I mean, most Europeans are victims of Christian ideas, yeah?
Ja, die meisten Europäer sind ja Opfer dieser christlichen Ideen.
So, I mean, you can see you've got to get rid of all these layers of bullshit, basically.
Also all diese Schichten von Unsinn musst du loswerden.
You see? All these layers have to go, and then what's left is something very beautiful.
Und was dann übrig bleibt, ist etwas sehr Schönes.
That's you.
Das bist du.
Ich übe mich noch daran.
I'm still practicing.
That's okay. Well, keep coming back and I'll help you to remember.
Komm her, dann helfe ich dir, dich zu erinnern.
Ja, das ist mir sehr wichtig.
That's
We-
really
We
important
always
to me.
have jobs in our kitchen, cutting vegetables.
In der Küche haben wir immer was zu tun. Du kannst
Ach,
Gemüse
ja.
schneiden.
Ist okay.
And we don't have a very big garden, but we have enough of a garden that we always have gardening to do.
Unser Garten ist zwar nicht sehr groß, aber gut groß genug, dass es immer was zu tun gibt.
Ich habe den Garten schon gekehrt.
I already did something in the garden.
Good.
Und von den Vögeln sind die Federn immer rumgeflogen, weil der Wind so stark war. Und ich dachte, was will es mir sagen? Ich kann die nicht einfangen.
And because the wind was so strong, the feathers of the birds were always blown around. And I wondered, what does it want to say me?
All right. Maybe nothing.
Vielleicht gar nichts.
Anyway,
Yeah.
good. I'm glad you came back, and of course you're welcome. Because we're always looking for sincere people.
Ich freue mich, dass du wieder zurückgekommen bist und wir suchen natürlich immer nach Leuten, die es ernst meinen.
So I think you're here this weekend. You're going to help us this weekend.
Bist du dieses Wochenende hier?
Yeah. So that's very nice. Thank you.
Danke.
Thank you so.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so go through on Skype. Hello, Trapelia.
Come here, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
I see you're all intently watching the satsang.
Yes. We have some more people here. Come here. Come.
Hello. Can you come into the picture maybe a bit closer?
So,
Okay. Oh, Leela also there.
Lila is there, yeah.
So maybe you tell me who's there. Leela, Diana, Arjuna, Irini, Kiran, Hanuman. And there's a funny blonde woman at the back there. I can't see her. Maybe she comes a bit closer.
So, everybody here.
Okay.
Lila, can you see yourself? Yes.
Wow, there are lots of people. 7 of you. Wow.
Okay.
Okay. So on Sunday, I'm going to offer, we can have a meeting for an hour on Sunday afternoon. So there's something called Zoom. Kieran knows about it. So on Sunday, I will come through on Zoom, and it works a bit like Skype. And I'm going to start offering it during this time when everybody has to stay home. In the daytime, I will be offering it. So on Sunday, you can tell your friends, we can tell Vijay and even the people who are in Bali, they can also connect into this Zoom. And it's a bit nicer than Skype because everybody can see everybody on the screen. Yeah. So we can have a talk together. So I think I'm going to say goodbye now because our meeting is ending, but on Sunday we can talk together. Anyway, it's nice to see you all there. Are you going to make some meditation and stuff this weekend?
Yes.
Good, good. Very nice. And Arjuna, is your operation was all right?
Yes.
Yeah? No problem?
No.
Good. Okay. Did you have some nice dreams?
Nice what?
Dreams when you came out of you had an anesthetic?
No, not really.
Not really. Okay. All right. So we'll talk on Sunday.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Ciao. Ciao. Okay. Thank you. Well, it's very nice. They got